the state that Nasser had inherited, former President Nasser had inherited from the British occupation and the king, is quite different than the state that the emerging regime is inheriting, because practically speaking, we don't have a state, so to speak, anymore. So it looks very bad, it looks very ugly in many ways, with the level of oppression, with the police brutality, with the human rights violations, with the closure of democratic prospect. There is hope when you see the events of the past 3 years not as a process of democratic transition, but as a revolutionary process that is much deeper and much more sophisticated and complicated than a process of democratic transition. Then you realize that there are changes that are yet to take place. It has two phases. One is the phase of institutional interests, which is very clear at moments of stability, where it attempts to preserve its economic and political power. The other is at moments of crisis, it steps in to defend the state and sustain the state. Now the military is acting in that crisis mode. The problem here is that they don't know any better. Those are military officers and not politicians. This can only work when you have a functioning economy and a functioning state. The election of Minister of Defense Sisi to president, if he runs, he will be elected. If he runs and if he becomes president, will not help resolve Egypt's problems in that sense. Nonetheless, it has an strong embedded opportunity therein, because if Sisi is elected president, he will be the only president in Egyptian modern history who comes to power with, number one, a very strong popular mandate. He does have sufficient power, popular support, and number two, being a man from within the state who understands how these networks of interests operate, which gives him an opportunity to save the Egyptian state by completely changing the mode of governing and the types of legitimacy it has formed over the past 200 years. Now, this is objectively speaking. What's happening is that they think, the Egyptian military and these networks of interest think that that stability means stagnation, that if you prevent further change, you will save the Egyptian state. It is ironic because the people who are calling most for stability are the people who are leading us to a very chaotic path, because this state is dead for economic reasons and for bureaucratic and structural reasons, and if you don't move fast into another mode of governance, then this will collapse and this would lead to chaos. Not even revolutionary change, chaos. The one problem here is that there is no other scenario to go to. I mean, if the regime collapses with the military being in power, you do not have the Brotherhood alternative that was there a couple of years ago, where people would vote for that alternative. We do not have serious and powerful political actors who can step in and assume responsibility. Throughout the past 3 years, Egypt, after the revolution, had a good chance of standing up as regaining its position as a strong regional force. Now this is not happening. Egypt is now placed for proxy war between regional forces, and whether it is Sisi or it's not, this will take time to change. For long years, policymakers in the EU and in the US have been betting on stability. That was the only card they were playing. So they were allying themselves to aging regimes. After the 9/11 attacks, there was, the aging regimes of the region, there was a realization that change is inevitably taking place. So let's look for new possible actors to cooperate with. So they started examining Islamists, talking, and there was this big debate that lasted for 6 or 7 years about engaging Islamists or not engaging Islamists, whether they should be part of a democratic process or no. And then the revolutions took place in 2011. So you had to just jump in the water and work with Islamists because that was the only thing you had. The change took place too fast that nobody has yet examined the possibility of other political partners. We all know that the current regime in Egypt, for instance, is not sustainable. The current mode of governance is not sustainable. But we do not yet, as researchers, civil society, as anything, we do not yet see the opportunity for another, or see another alternative at the moment, which keeps everybody cornered. Yes. We need to work on a few things. Number one is a comprehensive and serious process of transitional justice. And by transitional justice, I don't mean only reconciliation. I don't mean punishing the criminals. What's more important is deep structural justice, looking at how the state structures have enabled a long history of injustice, and then trying to fix that, trying to remedy that, trying to do some reconciliation on that basis. Maybe it's not time, maybe there won't be a good chance of punishing people for their crimes, but at least the only way to move forward is recognizing that acknowledging that something wrong had happened and trying to move beyond that. The second thing that we need to focus on very fast is rebuilding a new form of legitimacy that can only take place at a local level. Local government is the place where you can build political constituency, where you can, where a new political leadership can emerge, and where you have to transcend the dogmas of Islamists and seculars, I don't know what, because you have to deal with practical questions of day-to-day lives of people. And this is something that nobody's focusing on at the moment in Egypt. We had the local councils dissolved in June 2011, and we didn't have any local elections ever since. So Egypt has been functioning without a structure of local, and we have a very weak local government structure. The new constitution slightly empowers local government, but this is still insufficient. The third is judiciary, looking at reforming judiciary, because violence will continue to increase as long as people do not trust the judiciary and do not trust the due legal processes that should take place. Last is you need to revisit the state's socio-economic policies, because the shrinking state of the 1990s with the neoliberal reforms, the neoliberal reforms have not only dismantled state structures, but have also kept an increasing number of citizens completely alienated from the state, completely outside, with no connection whatsoever to the state and its logic and its discourse. So that allowed for further polarization. You have completely different public spheres. You do not have a unified public sphere in Egypt in any sense. So revisiting socioeconomic structures in a way that brings more people into the system with local government elections, with a process of transitional justice, that is the only way out of Egypt's current mess.